You've tuned into Radio Northern Beaches. We live stream on rnb.org.au across the northern beaches of New South Wales, Australia and all over the world. You can also catch us local on 88.7 and 90.3 FM. Our podcasts are available at your convenience at rnb.org.au or rnbpodcast.com.au. So you and your friends don't miss any episodes. Don't forget to follow and share. Now here's our latest podcast.
Community Radio Northern Beaches, 88.7 and 90.3 FM. Welcome again to Grandma's Music. I'm Michael Lester. Our guest has been described as a preeminent Australian jazz vocalist, been crafting his trade since his very early 20s and spending a lot of time in America developing his career and working with some of the biggest names in jazz music and jazz singing. Our guest is Gregg Arthur, doing an appearance here in our neighbourhood at the Chatswood Lounge on Thursday the 2nd of October at 7:30. Welcome to our program, Gregg.
Lovely to be here, Michael. Thank you.
Gregg, what sort of program might listeners expect to hear and in what sort of setting when you appear in Chatswood?
The concourse has a beautiful venue there. It's called The Lounge. It's a classic cabaret venue, really. It's a tiered level seating with little cocktail tables for everybody. And there's not a bad seat in the house. And it's very important for Sydney, actually, because we're running out of places for jazz quartets and music like this to perform in. The Foundry 616 is gone, which is very sad. It seats around 300 people. And so it's still intimate. A beautiful venue. I'm planning to do 50-50 mix of original compositions of mine and the classic jazz standards that have influenced me. Songs by Hoagy Carmichael and Cole Porter, George and Ira Gershwin, Jerome Kern, and sort of explain where my songwriting comes from and why I write the way I do.
Well, you're a unique and very individual performer anyway, with your beautiful vocal style, which is variously described as sophisticated and refined and relaxed and unhurried. It's certainly a beautiful voice there. I think it's styled a baritone voice, very smooth, and you've got this wonderful stage presence too, and ability to communicate not just the music, I guess, but I guess the feeling and the emotion behind. It's good that you're appearing, I guess, in a smaller venue, presumably with a smaller setting too, in terms of your backup.
It's classic quartet, piano, bass, drums and guitar. I've got the best players, really. I mean, a rhythm section born in heaven. Peter Locke on the piano, Craig Scott on the double bass, Andrew Dickerson on drums, and brilliant guitarist Charlie Meadows, who can play so beautifully, everything from a B.B. King style blues right through to Antonio Carlos Jobim very authentically. He's a wonderful guy to work with.
Some of the best in Australia in their field. This field,
absolutely, yeah.
What to you defines the sort of jazz genre? Because to my mind, often jazz essentially too involves improvisation on instruments as well as the voice, and yet presumably you're playing what might be referred to as the Great American Songbook, with beautiful songs often associated with crooners. Are you a crooner and jazz singers crooners?
No, and yes. I love Louis Armstrong. I love Mel Torme and Chet Baker. They're the three male vocalists that I think really sum up the genre that I love so much. And then you start broadening out a little bit more to Tony Bennett, who was a pop singer originally and a crooner, but loved the jazz repertoire and was really great at improvising on a theme. And then, of course, Sinatra, who is, I think, an extraordinary sound and tone, and the way he could phrase a tune and swing the melody over a swing rhythm section. Nobody really did it better. And then there's Sarah Vaughan and Ella Fitzgerald and Carmen McRae. They're all really brilliant, and to bigger and lesser extents, commercial singers and jazz singers. And it is a fuzzy line. I know people listen to Perry Como and he'll sing a Cole Porter tune, and he's definitely a crooner. And he sang this, in my opinion, he sang this song the same way every time. And I don't. Every time I perform a song, if it's, I don't know, pick a classic, Night and Day by Cole Porter, I'll change the tempo, change the feel, and sometimes do it in a Latin feel, sometimes just swing it. And I change it every time. And I've got different ways of phrasing in and out of the melody and the timing, stretching the timing and shrinking it. And I think that for me is my jazz interpretation. I scat sometimes too, like Louis did. Yeah, it's a grey area, Michael. It's a grey area.
But you seem to have made it your own from listening to your recordings over the years. You seem to have developed your own unique voice. Of course, you have got your own unique voice, and as you say, your own very distinctive approach, I guess, to rhythm and to phrasing and all of these things, as well as the tonalities of what you do. So, but I wonder too about your interaction with the fellow musicians and how you feel about that. Accomplished jazz musicians who are very good on their instruments. Is there much room for you with those sorts of players, or for them with you and your singing? And say compared to playing in front of a big band, which no doubt you've played in front of many times, have you?
Yes, I have full big bands with John and James Morrison traveling around the country. We did 22 shows together a couple of years ago around Australia with the 17-piece jazz orchestra. And I had a ball. As you say, it's a much different exercise getting up and performing like that than it is with a quartet. The big difference for me, I love working with a rhythm section, a small rhythm section, because everybody gets to express themselves in the moment and come up with ideas in the moment in a true jazz tradition. And we all listen to each other. And I am not a singer out the front with a backing band like a cabaret artist or a pop singer. I am definitely part of the group, and we are all listening and interacting and working with each other. And that's how that works, so that we can make some magic happen right there and then. With a big band, every instrument has got their orchestration in front of them, their arrangement, if you like, and they've got to read the dots, and it's a very specific set of parameters. And the same with orchestra. I've used to do so many shows with the lovely maestro Tommy Tico,
Yeah.
and a big string orchestra, and sometimes a horn section as well. So it was massive, sometimes a 50-piece jazz orchestra up on stage. And you've got to be much more disciplined, and you cannot be a jazz singer and decide that you're going to go off on a tangent here and scat for 16 bars and then come back in at the bridge or something. You've got to rehearse and stay true to the orchestration and the idea that the arranger came up with in the first place. In that circumstance, Tommy Tico, or maybe the wonderful Sydney arranger and pianist Michael Hope. We did some recordings for ABC and at Goosens Hall with orchestra and jazz quartet, and it's much more disciplined. I think that's closer to being a crooner, except that the arrangements are written for me specifically in a bespoke way so that I can express myself, but it's planned ahead.
Yeah. Well, inevitably, with so many people too, the bigger the group. So I guess we can look forward with the group that you're appearing in Chatswood to, as you're referring, say, a rapport, a dialogue between you and these excellent musicians that you've got with
Very
you. But
much so, yes.
what about the question of arrangements, though, to which you've referred? What role do arrangements play in a sort of repertoire you're going to be playing in Chatswood with this smaller group? And who does the arranging, if anyone?
Well, I've written a lot of songs and worked with Craig Scott, the bass player, to put them into a form that, as jazz musicians, we can have it in front and look at it and know the parameters of that, but then take it somewhere and listen to each other. So it's not an arrangement that's very strict in that sense. It could be four choruses. The bass player could play an entire chorus as an instrumental jazz improvisation, or it could be just twice through and very simple. It just depends how we feel in the moment. It's very different to having a string orchestration that is very specific from beginning to end, and this is how long it goes. It's a very different creature.
As you say, you'll be doing 50-50, the classic standards. And I guess prototypically one might characterize them as the songs that stretch back over a few decades, the great American songbook, the songs, the tunes, the melodies, the wonderful lyrics that come out of that big catalogue. A case in point perhaps being Unforgettable, which is a song I'm sure you've done many times and which you've recorded. Where does the sound like that you've put down on a track like Unforgettable fit into what you're doing these days?
I alluded to that a minute ago. That's arrangements by Michael Hope, who was also on piano. And we did that for the ABC, and it was a project that they wanted of the music of Nat King Cole, but performed by an Australian singer. A portrait of Nat King Cole, if you like. But my interpretations of the songs, they're not meant to sound like anything like what Nat Cole did with them in the first place. They're my interpretations of the classic songs that he sang, and with original arrangements, Sydney Symphony players on strings, and a jazz quartet playing, James Moller on guitar, Michael Hope on the piano, and Craig Scott on bass, and a beautiful, beautiful band with 16 strings. And it was meant as a project of a dedication to him. Unforgettable is a pop tune of the 50s. It is what it is. It's not really a jazz standard. And I performed it in that particular way, which is closer to Greg the crooner, I guess.
It is a wonderful showcase, may I say, of your wonderful voice and its smoothness and richness. Some describe it as smoky. And you were born in Sydney, I believe, and you were brought up in rural New South Wales on a cattle property or something. And somehow you made your way really to develop your career to America. So what was the story of that sort of journey? How did you make that journey?
It's a good question. Well, first of all, up at Strathroy, which was the name of the property, which is on the McIntyre River. If you swam across the river, you were in Queensland. So it's literally that line on the river, and you had to wind your watch back. The record collection my father had and tapes and everything like that were all the music he listened to, and that's what I was listening to, and I absorbed it. Also had my grandmother's music collection up there, which was all the original stuff from Broadway musicals of Rodgers and Hart and Rodgers and Hammerstein and Jerome Kern. And it was a wonderful encyclopedia of music with all the original librettos and introductions, the verses. And I was able to compare Miles Davis performing My Funny Valentine, read the sheet music originally written by Richard Rodgers and Lorenz Hart, and then listen to Chet Baker sing it and work out that this guy does this and reharmonizes these chords and performs it in this way, but it's the same song, but Miles does it like this. And then Sinatra doing it with the Nelson Riddle Orchestra.
So your focus was always on the vocals, was it? And I mean, did you actually get into instruments yourself in those days? Or
it wasn't always focused on vocals, no. I listened more to Miles Davis, and Chet was a trumpet player as well, obviously.
Right.
So, and then there was also lots of Stan Getz and a lot of instrumental music, actually. But it was just great to listen to the different ways all these artists were doing the same song.
Yep.
And in the same sense of great actors performing Othello or Hamlet. It's everybody does their own interpretation of the same story. Yeah. So I really loved that. I enjoyed that. And I thought it would be great to be able to work out, very pretentiously, by the way, it would be great to work out how to do it myself in my own interpretation. And at 12, I wouldn't want to hear any of it now.
Did you get lessons on instruments to back this up, or was it just with your
yes.
voice?
Yes. In Sydney, joined the music department in high school, played trombone and trumpet and a couple of other instruments throughout I just tried all sorts of things, joined bands and got piano lessons. I had a great time. As for getting to the United States, that was very roundabout. I was quite disillusioned with what I could learn in Sydney.
Disillusioned?
Oh, yes.
In what sense were you disillusioned?
Well, there weren't really any singing teachers or courses to do the style of music that I wanted to do. And I was very grateful to be able to work with some brilliant people. Like I had a gig with Julian Lee and Ed Gaston for a long while,
Mhm.
and I learnt so much. I learnt more from Julian Lee than any classes or lessons I went to. But I ended up taking off and going to Europe, and I hung out over there, and I met people like Ron Matheson, who was Ronnie Scott's bass player, and went to France. Didn't earn any money, but I got to sit in with them and hang out with people and learn.
Down and out in Paris and London.
Oh boy, very much so. I slept on the Gardenour railway station a couple of times. Then went to New York the first time, same sort of situation, just to meet people, scrounging around, getting a Reuben from a deli somewhere and existing on that for 2 days, but great fun.
How do you,
Yeah.
in any sense, break in? And were you able to end up on stages in Las Vegas and ultimately for long periods in California, in San Francisco?
Very hard work, a lot of respect for the people that I wanted to work for. I didn't I didn't for a second think that I was some brilliant artist and it was their luck to have me. Which believe me, a lot of people are like that. I felt like it was such a privilege to even meet these people and be able to get in and listen to them. And then to be invited up to do a couple of songs on jam nights or maybe late in the gig was just a huge privilege, and always did exactly what I was told, and was very respectful. And after a while, was invited to actually do gigs and earn $100, and then it went from there. And that's that sort of tenacity, but also being very respectful, I think it was a really good thing.
What would be a highlight of the sort of things you were able to realize once you were over there with this manner of yours and your talents?
It'd be Vinnie Falcone. He took over from Bill Miller as Sinatra's pianist. I met Vinnie. Frank had passed away a couple of years before, but I met Vinnie purely by accident because somebody else was sick. And the Lord Mayor had heard me sing somewhere, I forget, and then said, "Oh, there's this young man from Australia. You bring him in. He'll work very well." And Vinny was extremely tough on that first gig. He just started playing tunes and didn't even ask me what key I sing in. Yeah, if I didn't know the verse, then he'd just play it. But I did know the verse, and I did know all the tunes, and they were all in the perfect key for me because he was an absolute genius. He was
Right.
a gorgeous, gorgeous piano player. He had a great little group. That was at a venue that people used to come in and buy their martinis and sit there till like 1 a.m. after they'd been to dinner at Harrah's Casino and Resort in Las Vegas. And I got to sing with Vinny, and I hadn't even been introduced to him. I just sort of, he'd just give me a sideways look. And it was tough, but it was incredible to learn that I was doing this with the guy who had toured with Frank everywhere and was his conductor and orchestrator. And if you look him up, he worked with amazing people. Robert Goulet was another person that Vinny was the musical director for forever in Las Vegas. So wonderful. And Jerry Lewis and Sammy Davis Jr.
Gregg Arthur's our guest here on Oz Music Radio Northern Beaches. He's going to be appearing at the Chatswood Lounge Thursday, the 2nd of October at 7:30. As you say, half your program is going to be these standards and classics from the Great American Songbook, but the other half is going to be your original music. How and when did you move into this?
Oh, in my teens, I was writing tunes a long while ago. So I've always written. I've always liked listening to classic songs, particularly Hoagy Carmichael, being a singer, a lyricist, and a piano player. I love his writing, and for a very long time, I've just strived to write something that's even 5% as good as what Hoagy Carmichael could write. And I enjoy the process very much, and it's very good for your brain. It makes you analyze harmony and melody when you start writing your own things, even if they're no good. It's a very, very good exercise for the vocally and for your brain.
What is a piece I've come across? I think that you're just recording for a new album, I believe, called Faded Picture. What's the story or inspiration or what have you, character behind a composition like that?
Faded Pictures. It's plural. And that's going to be the name of the album. Yes, I've sent you that as an exclusive, Michael.
Well, thank you on behalf of our listeners to Gregg Arthur.
It's a Michael Lester exclusive. What you've got is a couple of what I'd call early mixes. The album's not ready for release yet. The director's cut. It's kind of nice to hear these come together, working with such fantastic musicians. Again, it's Peter Locke and Craig Scott and Charlie Meadows, and it's so lovely to work with them and listen to them interpret in a studio what I've written and turn it into something that sounds like it's been around for a long while. And it's a great privilege. Faded Pictures was me literally with my lovely partner, Lucy. We were cleaning up. I'm getting ready to sell my apartment, you see, putting it on the market. And there's a lot, as everybody knows that it's gone through this, there's so much to do and so much to clean up and work out what you're going to do with it. Oh, my God, yes. After 20 years, yes. I found these lovely old photographs from back when you used to get film and get it developed, and you'd have an envelope full of photos from...
With the negative strips.
With a negative strip in the back, yes. And all these old Kodachrome envelopes with just pictures from over the years, faded pictures. And I sat down at the piano and just started working on that idea. Faded pictures of...
Well, it's a wonderful romantic idea, of course, and motivation. Maybe one might say nostalgic, and one might say also, or question or ask about the Great American Songbooks. Is your presentation and focus on that, particularly in your live work, a nostalgia trip, or is it something more than that somehow communicates in a way you feel to contemporary audiences?
It's not. I don't like thinking of these songs as some historical artifact that has to be replicated. I pick songs that are relevant now and have lyrics that are very relevant now and could have been written yesterday. And that's what I like about them. They're timeless, beautiful lyrics. Even the simplest song by Lorenz Hart, the lyric, Blue Moon, is so applicable. I mean, everybody knows the song, but the lyrics are just so applicable to anybody right now. And so if a 17 or 18-year-old person is sitting in the audience and they hear that song, they'll go, oh, wow, that's great. You know, they don't go, oh, that's some old-fashioned thing. It's I've just gotten back from Singapore. I did 3 shows in Singapore, just near the Raffles Hotel. On the Friday night, there was a couple came up to me, a very young couple. They had a lot of money. They were drinking fancy cocktails and they had a bottle of champagne and they were having a great time. And I had just finished The Nearness of You by Hokie Carmichael and followed that up with Blue Moon by Lorenz Hart. And they said, oh, that Norah Jones song is really good. The Nearness of You. And did you write that one about the blue moon? And I said, yes, I did. It's one of my best songs, and just left it at that.
Well, that's a wonderful comment, isn't it, on the timelessness of good music, good melody.
Exactly.
Lyrics.
If you say this was written in 1921, half of them are going to turn off.
Here on Oz Music Radio Northern Beaches, I'm in conversation with Gregg Arthur, preeminent Australian vocalist of the jazz style and singer and songwriter, appearing locally at our Chatswood Lounge on Thursday, the 2nd of October, 7:30. You've played, obviously, and still do, I believe, lots and lots of international tours, including around Southeast Asia and Northeast Asia, some reference you've made there, but elsewhere, and you've always toured very much. You must have seen a huge range of venues, and I know you've played some of the biggest and whatever in the world, including here in Australia, the Opera House and city recital halls. But jazz is quintessentially a small venue, isn't it? A jazz type thing. Is it a challenge to maintain the intimacy and feeling and communication with an audience in the large venues compared to, say, like the Chatswood Lounge that you're going to be playing in?
It's a little bit different, but it isn't. I don't find it a challenge at all. It's
right.
I always talk to the audience the same way I do as if it's 100 people in a little club. I treat it the same way, and I've kind of learnt that by watching the masters do it. Anybody can look up Tony Bennett at Radio City Music Hall, and you know that there's probably 4,000 people there, but it still feels like he's just singing to a room full of people very intimately. He was a master at that because he was so relaxed and wonderful in his delivery. And Mel Torme could do that, and so did Sinatra and Sarah Vaughan, Ella. You've just got to watch what the masters do, and I've been doing that since I was very young. So I think it comes naturally somehow.
Well, certainly, Gregg Arthur, you have been. You've spent a lifetime doing it, and you certainly communicate that in your stage presence, your manner, the sound. You've learnt from those masters very, very well, obviously. And I think, listeners, we can look forward to a great treat at the Chatsworth Lounge on Thursday, 2 October with Gregg Arthur. And Gregg, I've really enjoyed talking to you, and we might go out too on one of your tracks, which again, as you've said, is a sneak preview from a forthcoming album, which you're just completing, are you? When will that be around?
Another couple of months, I think.
Thanks very much, Gregg, for joining us.
Lovely to talk to you, Michael. Thank you.
Australia, the lucky country. We've got meat pies. We've got the world's best beer. But most importantly, top of the list, we've got Radio Northern Beaches 88.7, 90.3. Now hitting the entire world on www.rmb.org.au.